It's very hard for these finance and accounting professionals that like to sit in front of their screen and do their work with Excel or whatever system they work in to get up from that screen and just go out and talk to someone. Hey, based on our alignment, here are some actions or initiatives or things we can do to actually improve business performance. What do you think? But there may be, questioning or doubting my truly genuine intentions, and that's a big challenge, to be honest. I mean, let's just get real about that. Growing my following, that list hasn't made a blip in the ocean. He told me, I noticed all this when we connect on LinkedIn. I noticed all this drama going on LinkedIn. What is that? And like, no, I just don't bother with it, right? Because it's not for you, it's not for the general user, and it really just shouldn't have been there at all.
Today on CPA Primetime, we have none other than Anders Liu-Lindberg. Now, if you've been on LinkedIn recently in the finance accounting space, you might have noticed a bit of controversy around a list. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit, but would love to get into the story of Anders here. And just very quickly, he's based out of Copenhagen, right? He's a finance business partner, and I'll actually let him explain more of what he does, his day job, his side gigs, what he has going on. But I'm excited to have him on the show based off of how well he was able to market himself on LinkedIn. So we'll get into a little bit of that. But before that, let's get into your origin story. Anders, great to have you on. And why don't you tell us how you got here, right? Who are you? Who is Anders Liu-Lindberg?
Yes, definitely, Juana. Thanks for having me on the show. I've really been looking forward to this. I mean, we talked about this last week, and there was quite a lot of things going on at the time. But I could just feel that having that brief conversation with you gave me energy. So I thought let's try to explore that a bit more. So happy to be here, and sorry for dragging you up so early in the morning because of the big time difference we have. That's how it is. That's dedication, and I love it. So it was a really great time there. The story of me, I mean, it's there's a lot of tracks I think to follow. Of course, there's the normal career stuff. I've been 12 years with the company Maersk, which is a transport and logistics company. You might have seen our big container vessels traveling around the world. You might have seen a truck with a Maersk container. Is this blue and white star? So we're definitely all over the world, and wherever I go on vacation or business travel, I would see a Maersk container there. So that's it's a quite interesting company to work for in that perspective. But I've been 12 years in the finance and accounting function, worked as a controller for some years. The controller function in Denmark and in Europe in general is a bit different from what it is in the US. In Denmark, it's more like an entry-level position where you get in and you work a bit with the numbers, and then you figure out what you want to do for yourself. So I did that for 5 years, financial controlling, business controlling, which is a bit more like FP&A. And then I went to the US actually. So I've been working in the US for 2.5 years down in Houston, Texas. Great time down there, especially because the oil price was above $100. So that was a bit like the Wild Wild West back in the days, I guess, but lots of happy days.
Interesting.
That was from 12 to 14. Left Houston again, and a few months after, the oil price came tumbling down again, and then everything we built up sort of got torn apart again. So it was a bit of a special situation there. But I was a finance manager there, and came back to Copenhagen again to still work for Maersk, of course, as a business partner. And what you do as a business partner is really to try and bridge the gap between finance or accounting and the business side of things, to say how can we use our strength in the numbers to extract insights that can help the business make better decisions.
Right.
So this was actually the first formal business partner role I had, working for one of our regions, trying to connect the finance in our countries with the business that was going on out there. My specific role was to get a lot of cost savings out of the countries, and then also help transform the finance function there. So working a lot with finance transformation as well. I did that for a couple of years. Then I took a more project-related role to help the leadership team in finance of Maersk to do more transformation. We also did the world's largest training program within business partnering, more than 500 people through that globally. I'm still running, at least a part of that is a one-day training.
Mm-hmm.
And I've trained 100 people in the spring. I'm going to train 150 people here over the next 2 months. So lots of development there as well. So I did
And
that
so,
for like,
mhm.
what?
Through that training, by the way, because I feel like finance business partnering in general, it's pretty easy to understand. I I just want your insight on, as far as the training goes. Are the trainees receptive? Are they having great opportunities?
Yeah, so I'm really happy you say that it's easy or simple to understand, because it is actually very simple to understand. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort to explain it. However, what we found is it's very hard to execute, right? It's very hard for these finance and accounting professionals that like to sit in front of their screen and do their work with Excel or whatever system they work in, to get up from that screen and just go out and talk to someone. Ask them, how's the business going? Use that information together with the financials and says, okay, pairing business and financials, here's how I see things are going. Do you agree or not? Discuss, align, come back the next month. Okay, based on our alignment, here are some actions or initiatives or things we can do to actually improve business performance. What do you think? And then you do some of that stuff, and next month you come back again and say, hey, based on what we decided to do, here's how we improve performance. Let's do
Right.
some more of that. Or it didn't work out, we should try something else. So it's actually, it doesn't have to be hard to execute, but it's just proven to be really, really hard to succeed with on a grand scale. So I mean,
Right.
the first business partner role I was in, coming back to Denmark, in hindsight, from what I know now, I can definitely say that I was not a great business partner back then. Actually, I was a pretty poor one. But I thought I was pretty good back then. But that just showed us how difficult it is to actually succeed with this. So I did some project work, and I did this big training program. I didn't come up with it, but at least I was running it for some time. And then I was asked a year ago to step back into to a business partner role. And from that experience, the past 9 months, I can just see how differently we need to work with it, but also how easily it actually is to try and succeed with it. So that's sort of the, at least one of the storylines that I'm touring around telling these days. But
Love
that's
it.
sort of the, you can say, the official day job story.
Hmm.
Then there's a lot of side gigs, side works to that. I've been active in the writing space, you can say, since probably 2012. On LinkedIn since May 14, where I published my first article, "How to Break Free from the Stereotype," really
Nice.
tackling the fact that, finance and accounting professionals, the main tagline you would hear, especially in the US, is the tagline "bean counter," right? There
Right.
are bean counters everywhere when business people come in and say, "Oh, here comes the bean counters again," and it's a very demeaning, you can say, title to give them, but it also signals that these guys are not really helping them create some impact. So just
Hmm.
count the numbers and don't really understand the business. So that's sort of what I'm trying to help people break free from, because you still hear this today. I was with a company yesterday sharing my story, and we
Hmm.
asked them as part of the talk that we gave, okay, so what's the brand of finance when you ask the business? And one of the words that came out there in the word cloud, not just from one, but from a few of the participants, was the word bean counter. Right? So it's still out there. We still haven't broken free this damn
Right. Right.
stereotype, right? So that is one of my core purposes, to help finance and accounting professionals have rewarding, interesting careers by actually elevating themselves to the next level, getting out of data reports and analysis and into sharing insights with stakeholders, influencing their decisions, and creating an impact on the business.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's really what I've been writing about ever since. And of course, I'm doing more and more work in this space. I'm publishing 2 blogs a week within finance and accounting and FP&A and business partnering to really try and bring latest thinking to our profession, the way I see it, but also bringing in perspectives from a lot of different other professionals.
Love
So
it.
that's the
Love it.
writing stuff. Co-author of a book, more than 300 blogs to my name. And as part of that, also met some people that wanted to start a business where we actually help other companies become better at business partnering. So
Hmm.
we founded the Business Partnering Institute back in April of 2018,
Oh,
after
very
having
cool.
discussed it for better parts of 1.5 years. So we launched it back then, 1.5 years ago. And now we have 3 people working full time there, a 4th person also very actively in that company. And then of course I'm on the side just doing marketing and trying to get our name out there. And as a finance professional, there I thought I was going to be a marketing professional, but that's sort of a lot of the stuff that I do now as well. So
Nice.
the day job, the blogging, the institute. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things going on all the time.
Right. Love it. And just to provide some quick value for the audience here, since you've written about it and just worked on it for so long, I guess what's one thing you could tell the audience right now that's top of mind in terms of breaking free from the stereotype in accounting?
Yeah, it is. It's really that you can say 4-step approach that I just alluded to a bit earlier to say, however, wherever you are right now, whatever you're doing, here's what you can do. Go out, identify who are your main business stakeholders or customers, however you want to label them. Sit down with them, have a talk about how the business is going. That's step number 0, right? Then next month, you've looked at the numbers based on the insights you got from the business, and you present your story. This is how you see it. Then you align on things. That's step number 1 after, let's say, 1 month, depending on your business cycle. Month 2, you come back with actions, recommendations to improve things based on your alignment around how business is going. And of course, you've looked more into the numbers and what's going on in the market. You come with those recommendations, and maybe it's your recommendation or it's the business stakeholders' recommendation that you decide to do to improve business performance. And then that's step 2, you can say. And then step 3 is the 3rd month. You come back and say, here's the outcome of the initiatives that we took, great or not so great. What can we then do about it? And then you repeat that cycle. Anyone can do this right now. Just get started. Go and book that lunch with your stakeholder and sit down and have a talk with them. Everyone loves to talk about what they're doing. I mean, look at me. I love to talk about what I'm doing, and I'm sure you love that as well about yourself, Juan, just to talk about what you're doing. Everyone loves that. So regardless of what relationship you have with your business stakeholders today, they'll happily take a lunch with you and just explain how things are going. And then you add step by step to it. Anyone can do this right now. And that makes business partnering easy.
I love it. Hey, you heard it right there, guys. Take action, step up, book the meeting. That's the first step. Or identify and then book the meeting. So you also mentioned marketing, right? And I definitely respect the marketing that you've done on LinkedIn. Look at you. You're on a podcast now. I definitely hope this turns into you being invited to even more podcasts. But one thing that people have noticed on LinkedIn was a list, right? A list of influencers, a list of content creators. Some of my clients have been on that list. I've been on that list. But there have also been, influencers in the space that are really well known, the most well-known influencers, in fact, that started to kind of, I would describe it as complaining in the comments that they were not on the list. So how could it be a valid list? People started questioning the list, the validity of it. Who are these people on the lists, right? Actually, a very big podcast the other day talked about the list, and they basically said, nobody knows who those people are, right? Well, I would say nobody even knows about the accounting world. So we've all got some marketing to do here, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
No, but I just would love to see ask you about how that list came about and what you think about, the way people are reacting to it.
Right. So if we take it one step back, I mean, this list was actually inspired by a bunch of marketing / LinkedIn people doing their own list of content creators within that space. And I think I saw that list maybe, I don't know, back in April or something like that. And it was like a list. Oh, here's a list of people that are making a big impact on LinkedIn. It's by Brenda Miller, and she called it like the rock star list. And I was like, okay, if this is a list of people making an impact on LinkedIn, I want to be on that list, right? Because big following and it's growing, and I'm out on the LinkedIn every day with posts and articles and whatnot.
Right.
So I send a message, say, hey, can I be on the list? Just because if there's a list, why not be on it? I mean, there's nothing bad about being on a list. If you're unless of course you are artificially being put down or low on that list, and we can get back to that part, right? And she said, yeah, I'll take you on the list. And she looked at my following, whatever. You seem like a big following. I'll take you on the list. And she took many other people on that list, and LinkedIn people and non-LinkedIn trainers or non-LinkedIn people. So it mushroomed to like 100 people or whatever. And now she's developed it a bit further. But that list basically only looks at one thing in terms of determining the ranking, which is relative follower growth, right? So how much did your following grew in the past week relative to your total following? That's how this ranks people, right? So it's very simple. I then thought, since I'm a purpose-driven guy to try and bring more great content to people so that they can improve in their careers, why not try to make the same list for finance? And then it's very important to understand how I work, right? So if I would do something like this, I would crowdsource the names for this list. I would not sit down myself and look at who are the people I think should be on this list. I would simply just ask the network and say, who do you think should be on this list? And then, of course, I might add a few names myself, but I wouldn't say, okay, here's the list of 20 people I think are great people. They should be on the list, right? Because this opens big flank to attack, to say, oh, you picked these people and now I don't like you because you didn't pick me, and all this drama. I just, it's a crowdsourced list. Anyone could sign up for it. Anyone could recommend people to it. The only limit I have was to say you got to have like 1,000 followers, because otherwise, it's too easy to sort of, get a little bit of growth and then suddenly you're very high on the list.
Right.
And, being a finance person, I thought, okay, let's try to make the ranking criteria maybe a bit more diverse. So I said, instead of just, total following or absolute follower growth and relative follower growth, why not just combine those three into one measure and say, okay, well, if you have a big following and you're growing a lot, also relative to your big following every week, then you must be doing something right. I mean, it's a proxy, of course, right? It's not a quality stand by any means, but you must be doing something right, which makes people want to either connect with you or follow you.
Right.
So that was sort of the ranking criteria that I used for this, which was, of course, more sophisticated than the original marketing list, which, of course, also have suffered a few attacks here and there. But, marketing people, they love to be on lists and they love to get their name out there. Accountants don't really understand that or get that. So this created a lot of drama, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's sort of where we stood with that, and then people started to they wanted to get off the list. They wanted to have a more qualitative ranking, and then try to do some quality stuff in the background that created even more drama and counter lists and I don't know what, right? And people got very much into it with each other and fighting and arguing and I don't know what about a list, right? I could understand if I had handpicked some people to say these are the only ones that are good, not knowing what else is out there. I mean, I think a comment on the original list after one of the major, at least by following, influencers on LinkedIn had commented that to say that I don't even know why I'm on this list, but anyway. And then some other people from the US says, I don't know any of these people. And then one comment, yeah, but that's just because most of them are not in the US. And I'm like, come on, guys, what are you fucking doing over there, right? It cannot be that you have to be from the US in order to be on the list or be recognized.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm from Denmark, so my network is maybe skewed more towards Europe. I don't know. I have a pretty global network, but I'm not excluding anyone from this list.
Right.
You're from the US, that's fine. You can be on the list if you want to. It doesn't matter to me as long as you're producing content consistently and you have a minimum amount of followers. But that, that was all drama right there then. But I thought that was a very interesting comment, because I think, yes, I'm sure US can teach the Europeans and the rest of the world something. We can definitely also teach the other way, especially when it comes to business partnering and creating an impactful finance and accounting function. Because that's where I feel, personally at least, that the US is definitely lagging behind.
Right, I would agree. And I would just have to say, in general, the accounting firms, from what I've seen and from what my modern firms have seen here, the firms in the US are just behind, right? So it's like, oh, but they're not in the US. That makes no sense.
Exactly. And I'm not biased towards any nationality or gender or anything, right? Anyone can be on this list. I even made a concerted effort to try and get more females on the list, because that is often a problem, especially in finance and accounting. There's not a lot of female content creators out there, but there are lots of them, and sometimes they're maybe just, I don't know, shy about marketing themselves, whatever. But I want anyone to be on that list. If I had to track 1,000 people, we could actually easily do that. But yeah, apparently this list and other lists didn't sit well with finance and accounting people. So I decided to just stop all that crap. I don't want to take all this negative shit anymore. So let me focus on my thing and let everyone else focus on fighting over what they want to fight about.
Yeah.
I'll focus on my content, put that out there, and try to make a positive difference for our profession.
No, I think it was definitely an interesting, to me, just looking at human behavior, it was almost like an interesting social experiment to me, right? Because I mean, you did have, to me, at least from what I've, and this is just my opinion, right? Me looking at human behavior, influencers with well-recognized names basically almost embarrassing themselves or showing their own ego in the comments by either not being on the list or like, what is this? What is that? Why am I not on the list? I can just increase my followers by buying them, right? Oh, I can increase my followers too and be on the list, when people on the list probably did not even buy followers, right?
No,
especially in this space. So, I just thought it was funny to see people say really silly things, but I think that also speaks a lot to the ego of an accountant and an accounting professional, and more specifically, not a typical ego where, as you would say, oh, a marketer is so flashy, they have an ego, right? But there's sort of this humble, pompous arrogance in accounting sometimes, and especially not even on LinkedIn, right? Especially even in the boardroom sometimes. So just super interesting. I think people definitely reacted to the list, and that is not. I'll give this marketing tip to the audience out there: being so reactive to something, that's not good. So you actually have to regulate your reactions a little bit, put controls around your reactions, right? Not suppress emotions, but it's like, well, let me think. How does this make me feel, right? Because you do have that reaction when you're on the list or not on the list, but it's like, okay, now what am I going to say? So I imagine people are looking at their phones. This is what I imagine. People looking at their phones and they're just like, and then they get right to typing, right? I mean, that's not going to turn out in terms of marketing yourself or coming across well online strategically if you move too fast, especially without doing your proper due diligence. So there was even people that were saying things about you but hadn't talked to you before. So I thought it was just great to have you on, but super interesting stuff. And that's funny that you're actually canceling the list now, because I thought it was a great marketing move to have it. But then we saw how people acted in this space specifically. And then you might be saying now, oh, well, there's better, areas to spend my time in terms of marketing and such. But no, those are just my thoughts, just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I certainly appreciate that, and I agree. I mean, I would say from my perspective, in terms of growing my following, that list hasn't made a blip in the ocean even, right? I mean, yeah, maybe I added 10 or 20 more followers in a specific week, but I mean, come on. This list, of course, is marketing for me to get more views and likes and engagement, all that stuff that you get on social media anyway. But I think that list made a big positive difference for a lot of individuals on that list who are now not getting this. And I think that's a shame, but that's how it is. I mean, this list didn't make a big difference for me, but I thought it was interesting to elevate other content creators that didn't sit well with the profession. So, hey, we'll find other ways of doing that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point in this market specifically, which is I was excited to be on the list. My clients were excited to be on the list, but at the same time, if other people even look at us excited to be on the list, they might say, oh, just on a huge pounding podcast the other day, they said, oh, they're kind of making fun of the list. They're like saying, oh yeah, I need, so the people that are really on that list, like especially my clients or myself, it's not that we need to be on the list. It's just pretty dang lists in general, and then producing content around that, and then somehow
Yeah,
really, really influencing people, not like the funny. And I stepped into the space and kind of even like little award shows that marketing companies put on in the space that are like, well, who's the best firm? Vote for the best firm, right? And obviously that's a marketing thing, but that's not something that I participate in because I think just for the space, we have so much growth to do in terms of marketing the value of the space to the rest of the business environment, where it's like, no, guys, I mean, these lists are okay, but it's like, let's be on the Forbes list. Like, let's be on
yeah.
some great world lists to where, you know, the bickering between our own profession, I don't think that's such a good idea, or it's not, you know, it's not time used wisely. So you definitely made an interesting post the other day about, you know, why don't we collaborate, right? I think I don't remember the post, but why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because I think moving forward, that's just the better approach for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly going back to the list, I mean, the list has not changed how I produce and create content, right? So I have a pretty set rhythm for how I do things. Okay, sometimes I might test and try some that I call them products, right, and they don't necessarily work out. But just to give you an idea, right? So Monday, I publish an article. Tuesday, I do a Tuesday Assist initiative where I highlight one profile that's actually looking for a job, and maybe I have someone in my network that can help them out.
Very cool.
Wednesday, I was then for at least a few weeks doing the list. Let's call it a product. It didn't work out, so I'll figure something else out for Wednesdays.
Nice.
Thursdays, I'm publishing an article. Friday, I mean, depends a bit on what goes on. Saturday, I just, a few weeks ago launched the Ask Me Anything Saturday, so that's like a Saturday product. And then also a few weeks ago, I launched a Sunday product called Weekly Sunday Reflections. And this post you're referring to was one of my weekly Sunday reflections, where I, of course, was reflecting on all this drama that been in the past couple of weeks after I made the decision to stop the list and say, okay, let's just stop all of that. Let's try to take a positive perspective. And I mean, I'll open my network and my following to anyone who wants to collaborate. If you don't want to collaborate, that's also fine. I mean, let's not make it bigger than it is. There's plenty of people out there that are willing to collaborate. And if there are a few that don't, I mean, then you'll find your own way and I'll find my own way. But there's no point in us having any negative emotions around that.
Right, right. I think that's a positive outlook. I think that's healthy for the space. Me as a marketer, just looking at the human behavior. I mean, imagine me, because this is what happens. Imagine me looking at my phone and sort of wondering why people are acting like this, right? So it's just such a fascinating thing to me in terms of people having egos or being almost controlled by their ego, and them also not realizing it, them not thinking they have an ego. So a good way to describe that is someone that didn't make the list maybe commenting that, hey, the people on the list, they just want to boost their egos, like da 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 in the comments. But what is that comment though, listener? And the reason I'm talking about this is because if you're listening to this, I don't want you to make this mistake on LinkedIn or in communication, right? That's really what marketing is, communication. So I think you really do have to check your own ego at the door before you make comments like that. Or, maybe you have interesting insight on the accounting ego. Do you have anything to say about that? Just the way people act.
I think so. So just first things first. I mean, there's of course a lot of drama going on in the background that the, let's say, common user of LinkedIn who goes and read this content doesn't know anything about, right? So they don't have any clue about why did all these comments come about, because some people on the list didn't like each other, and so it creates a lot of drama. But for the average user, they have no freaking clue about what goes on, and just see this. What is this mess? So I was on a weekend camping trip with with my son's school class and all the fathers there. And there's also one of the fathers. He's a controller in a company, and he told me, I noticed all this when we connect on LinkedIn. I noticed all this drama going on LinkedIn. What is that? I'm like, no, I just don't bother with it, right? Because it's not for you, it's not for the general user, and it really just shouldn't have been there at all. But clearly, I think accountants, they like to get things perfect, right? They like the debit and credit to be completely in sync, and they like the accounting standards to cover everything. They like to make sure the SOX controls or whatever control framework you're using, make sure that no fraud at all can be done. And so if someone is going to make a list, the criteria for being on top of that list has to be absolutely foolproof and cover everything qualitative, whatever you can imagine. And if it doesn't do that, I'm going to burn this list to the ground, right?
Right. That's interesting.
It's imbalances there. There are opinions, but different right or wrong. And accountants, they just, it blows their mind that there's something beyond debit and credit sometimes, right? I'm sad to say this because I've sat there not as a bookkeeper but as a finance manager, and also try to make the debit and credit balance, and sometimes it can be frustrating, I know that, but that's not all we are. There's so much more to this. Just going back to the first article I published on LinkedIn, I made a reference to a Dodge car commercial from like 5, 6, 7 years ago, where they're trying to build the car of the future, and it's like this 1 hour 30 minute, 1 minute 30 second spot, and in that spot there's like a 3 second segment where the narrator, he says, after they have built this crazy car or they're about to build it, and he said, okay, let's go ask finance. And then 1 second on this, very conservative, tied up guy, he says, no, we can't do it. And then the narrator says, okay, screw finance, we're just going to do it anyway, right?
Yeah, I remember.
Anyone, right? It's not helping anyone. It's not bringing us forward. It's not evolving us to the next level. We can do debit, credits, and mindsets that we've lost, and having a fixed mindset and eliminate risk. All those things that accountants are associated with, we have to elevate ourselves to a different level. And if all we can do is bigger amongst ourselves, then I'm sorry, then I'm leaving this, and I'm doing something for myself.
Right. Well said. I definitely have a personal, I take commercials like that and advertisements like that personal, just because that was the thing. When I came into the market, I thought I could change what society thought about accounting. And you may have seen me say this on LinkedIn, right? And part of where I get that mission is because, man, why is accounting always being the butt of the joke in movies, in shows, in commercials, in advertisements? So, hey, my team over time, over the next, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be, we are going to make some of the best accounting commercials in terms of capturing the story of how the departments actually do help the company versus the motor vehicle commercial, right? Oh, can we do this? No. Like, come on.
Exactly.
But
no, but this is also part of the story of how I got into finance, or got back into finance, because I actually I think like 13 years ago, I had taken a stint in HR. I'm not going to accounting, and a guy can't keep running forever. So I took a stand there. Now I've spent the first 12 years of my career, maybe not all of them in active ways, to try and change the brand of finance. And I continue on that journey. But we got to get our head out of our ass first before we can actually start doing it.
Definitely. Well said. And I would just have to back you up. The accountants have it needing to balance, the debits and the credits, needing to have everything perfect, right? I actually think that's why most accountants, let alone let's redo this video. Let's not even put the video out at the end of the day. That's where it gets to. Or, they're just, that's right. You don't know. That's right. You don't. I would definitely also say from the business area of actually
accountants have a really small comfort zone, right? And we really like to stay in this. And believe me, personally, I have been on this journey, right? If I should speak from my nature, I hate networking events. I hate that it's just not on that it's like that, right? I have to try and get out of my comfort zone and push myself to engage with people, try to figure out what are they all about, how can I help them, how can they help me, and so on, right? So it's very, very simple, right? Just try it out, publish the post, publish the article, do the video in one take, learn from it. Fail fast to succeed sooner is this famous old saying, right? Fail, and yes, it is damn uncomfortable to begin with, and it's damn uncomfortable the second time, the third time, the fourth time, the experience, but it's make people think you're an idiot, and the person on the other side of the table or the street or whatever, they're probably having similar reservations about all this stuff, so they probably wouldn't like to do it either. Just go and do it, right? And get out of your comfort zone, and you don't have to take a huge jump in the first go. Take a small step. We call it micro steps, because it's better to take a micro step than not take a step at all.
Sure. I mean, I love it. I definitely, I would have to agree about the micro step, right? You don't have to have an extravagant video to then post a video on LinkedIn, right? Even say, this is my first video, guys. Like, right? Don't judge too harshly. Maybe even hedge your bet and say that. Yeah. But I would say, you made a good point about the other people. Let's bring it to accountants and that comfort zone, right? That very specific industry comfort zone versus a space like marketing, where you just have like super flashy guys, right? I'll put it like this. Like, imagine in corporate, your lunch, how I'm going to grab my water when the manager is here or when the controller is sitting by me. Like, oh man, like, come on. You have to realize that other people don't necessarily care about these things that you're afraid of. And also, I think internally, I even had it too, maybe just not as much as your, real talented analytical accountant, but that nervousness too, right? Of just booking the meeting within corporate when I did work, right? Or stepping up to do different things. But I would say that your goal, what you have in mind, years from now, that has to be so big. Your ambitions have to be so big to where, me being nervous to get on this Zoom call, that nervousness can't matter if my ambitions are that big, like in 5 years, So my mentor, for the audience, my mentor calls that setting anchors. So my anchor needs to be really heavy so that it just pulls me along, so that I'm not really worried about the call today, right? Because I can't afford that. I can't afford that, even if I am. So it's kind of like getting past that fear and understanding as a human, primitively, you mentioned something, that they're not going to get hurt. Their body thinks they are, right? Their body thinks they're actually physically going to get harmed. So I would definitely take the baby step to realize you're not going to get harmed. And then you might look at someone like me. You don't have to be like me. You can definitely be more calm, right? You don't have to be someone like Justin McAuliffe, one of the clients that I show up. He's definitely gregarious. You don't have to be like him. And even for us, it's not that we don't care what people think. No, we do care what people think. It's that we don't let the opinions of others sway us any which way, right? So they might have a bad opinion about us, and sometimes it may even be correct, or we may make a mistake in terms of content, but at the end of the day, that's just not gonna stop me from, trying to get to where I need to get to where in accounting, I feel like opinions do affect the accounting mind just so much, almost too much. So this is all super interesting. But before we run out of time here, I would definitely love to provide more value to the audience and ask you about one of your biggest challenges in your career. I mean, it sounds like I feel like people also question your expertise online if they had just seen you make the list and that's it, right? Or like you told me, like, hey, is Juan real? Like, that's what that's how we first got in touch. You're like, who is this guy, right? Is he
Yeah, exactly.
is he a con man or something, right?
Exactly.
So I think talking to
It was
people.
so just get in contact with you. Okay, so now I need to get into this. What are you all about? And you said, send me a message. I bet you won't do it. You said that in public. And I was like, I just sent you a message, and just for everyone to read, I actually did send you a message, right? And then some of your guys, they said, I read this to say that, and I mean, just reflecting on that, you have from my perspective at least, a completely different brand, at least in public, right. And it's on purpose, right? So it was a different experience, not bad or good to your profile and what you do. So I understood what you do, and I think it's the same thing for me. I'm a practitioner by heart, right? So I'm actually out there every day doing what all these thousands of consultants are only talking about. I'm doing this stuff every day, which lends so much more credibility to it than someone that might have done it, but is suddenly promoted as an expert, goes out there other than some generic stuff in the past 9 months to say the business you can take to actually make it simple and easy to be a business partner. And I've done it, and I have the same insecurities that you have. So maybe you just go out and try it and see what happens. Why not? And it's so much better coming from a fellow practitioner than a consultant. So at least for a little while, also try the real life, or if you've tried a long time ago, maybe try it again, because it lends so much more credibility to your profile, just as well as probably would lend credibility to my profile doing what I do with the Institute, that I actually went out and did a bit of consultant work. So I'm actually going with the Institute next week to Finland. It's just a bit north of northeast of Denmark, in case you don't know where it is, to do some training with another company for the Institute. So I'm taking some days off to do that. Nice. To also train my skills as a consultant, so that I can do both, right? Because if you can do both, so much more credible than if you can only do one or the other. And I really want to do both and be a finance guy and a marketing guy and maybe even a sales guy, right? I mean, so that you can combine all these different skill sets. And let's say if I stay in finance and I want to become a CFO, I become so much better for that.
Yeah, I think that does give you more credibility versus someone popping up, especially popping up with no results, or maybe just one case study, and then they have a course, right, or a program. So super interesting stuff. And I think for the audience, if you feel like you have to express your expertise too, I think getting on a podcast like this or another one is just such a great way to do it, because people who may have not liked that you made the list or didn't know much about you, now from watching this interview, they know more about you. And even if they tried to not like you or tried to discredit you, it would be such a hard thing to do in an interview like this after watching this. So definitely thank you for coming on. But I do want to, hold you to that question though. Why don't you tell us about one of your biggest challenges, right, throughout your career?
So I think one of the biggest challenges for me has definitely been to one, but I've broadened out so much that some people have started to doubt, okay, shouldn't you just go out and be a consultant or a LinkedIn guy or something completely different, rather than maybe pursue a hardcore corporate career? These doubts about what is Anders and what does it really pursue a corporate career, and very happily also with Maersk. But it's been a big challenge for me to try and get the most out of all the things that I do, both in a focused way, but also getting people to understand, why do I do this, and how does it help, let's say, a company like Maersk, and how does it help professionals across the world? That understanding, because when I started doing this, there was no practitioners in finance and accounting doing what I do. Now there are starting to come some more, but mostly it was just consultants doing this. There was no practitioners doing this. Interesting. Of course, being active on LinkedIn, people to say, well, are you looking for a job or something? And, of course, always great if you can get the next big job, all that stuff. But I was there for a different purpose, and people didn't understand that. And that's been a big challenge for me, and it's still a challenge, because they see me out there promoting a lot of stuff, and they're thinking I have a big ego, and maybe I do. Who knows? But they're maybe, questioning or doubting my truly genuine intentions. And that's a big challenge, to be honest. I mean, let's just get real about that.
Mm-hmm. No, very, very real answer. And I definitely respect that. So definitely understand that challenge. Just looking at how people would react to you doing everything you're doing. So super interesting. Anders, thank you for coming on the show. Guys, this is the real Anders. So,
Exactly.
so definitely loved interviewing you. And is there any, last words that you would just like the audience to know?
Let me just repeat, just do it, right? Don't get stuck in your comfort zone. Go out there and do whatever it is you've been fearing for the past 10 years, whether it's talking to a business stakeholder or going on a parachute, whatever it might be. Just do it so that you expand your comfort zone. And then you can expand. And suddenly you can be a marketing guy or a sales guy, even though you thought you were only a debit credit accountant.
Super interesting. Fascinating interview. Well, guys, you can connect with Anders below. I highly suggest you do, especially on LinkedIn. And for now, that is it.